So today we shall begin by looking at what we did yesterday, but towards the end of the class, I realized that there was a little bit of confusion with regards to how these three differ. So let us actually begin by taking a look from the beginning. So first and foremost, when we say Dukkha as ordinary suffering, what do we mean? What did we look at yesterday? Okay, so first and foremost, we can say that when we speak of this ordinary suffering, we can kind of categorize it, okay, as a kind of an apparent or an immediate form of suffering. Now this includes also physical and mental pain. Okay, so when we look at physical pain, what can be the examples? Okay, sickness is one. What else can we have? Okay, old age. Next. Okay, as we saw, what happens when you fall down or you meet with an accident? Injuries. Okay, so certain injuries that you get can be clubbed under the physical pain. Mental pain, what do you think would come under this? Okay, as we said, when we are separated, but what results out of this separation? Depression, then what else? Okay, panic attacks. Oh, but under what would you put all those? Don't go so this thing. Try to simplify this thing. What will we call it? Simple things. Suppose you all have to work on a project or something till the last, tomorrow have to submit. Pressure, stress, okay? Okay? Suppose you do not like somebody and you are with that person traveling together. What would be your emotion? Okay, discomfort you would have. Frustration, sometimes when you want to do something and you are not able to get it. Okay, so okay, anxiety, very good. Okay, so in a way, we see some of these things which we can immediately feel. Next, also certain hardships. I think here is where the confusion was yesterday. Okay, so there are certain hardships which we all encounter in life, such as loss of loved ones or any natural disasters, etc. Now, when we look at this ordinary suffering, what does come to our mind? When we look at all these three, these are just examples or kind of categories of this. What comes to our mind? How can we, in a way, characterize this kind of suffering?
Inevitable.
Okay, in a way we say that it is inevitable. Any other answer? We see that this one is a bit direct. It is easily recognizable. Okay, so when you see sickness, old age, injuries, there is natural disasters, loss of loved ones, it is easily recognizable and it affects the physical and mental well-being. And another characteristics of this is it is universal. That means all of us at some point of time or the other are going to experience it. Okay, whether now or some years later or tomorrow, this is going to be part of our life. So we cannot escape it. Is there any doubt with this? Let's go to the next and then we'll compare. So when we said dukkha as produced by change, this in a way arises from the impermanence of things that are there around us. So impermanent nature of things around us. And this results from changes in life which are beyond our control. So one of the examples which we can give here is loss of pleasure. So as we said, you are enjoying something and suddenly it comes to an end. Also, transition. So going to a new place, new job, maybe in college studies the environment was different, there was a lot of motivation around. Now you all come to philosophy, same faces every day. Okay, also could be dukkha as produced by change. And the impermanent that means the transient or the impermanent nature of things. So what are the characteristics now here? So earlier if we saw, this was in a way direct. Ordinary dukkha as ordinary suffering was direct. This tends to be a bit subtle. So this becomes apparent over time. So for example, here you are sick, you feel the pain immediately, you have an accident, you get injured, there is pain. As you have reached old age, you have pain, okay? So there is some thing which you do not like that has happened, you feel discomfort, anxiety, etc. Okay, there is a natural disaster, there is some, so there is an immediate cause and effect over here. This is subtle. Over time, slowly you gradually realize it. Okay, and so this basically, in a way, is said to be a kind of dissatisfaction which comes from trying to hold things. So, I have had a very good experience in my college. I still want to hold on to that. Even though my environment has changed, still I am mentally over there, thinking about those enjoyable events, those enjoyable moments. As a result of it, I am not able to be in the present. Even sitting here, I am thinking of my friends over there, where we went out, what we did, etc., etc. So in this way we see, this is in a way dukkha as produced by change. Is the difference clear between these two at least? Yes, sir. It is in a way, you could say inevitable, but ultimately we see that the transition, of course, the process may be inevitable, but what accompanies with it is in your control. For example, you can either decide, okay, I'm going to a new place, let me leave behind everything and start afresh, or you can still carry that baggage with you and go forward. In that sense, we say that this is basically, in a way, apparent, it's caused by change. Okay, we can say that it is also inevitable, yes, because it will happen, but ultimately you are in a way in control of it. So you can allow it to happen to yourself. Whereas in this first place, we see that it happens. It will happen at some point of time or the other. Here, if you have developed certain kind of a mindset, you can avoid it in that sense. So, when we look at the last one as conditioned states, so this is in a way more profound. So, in this case, what we would categorize or what can come under this would be a kind of insecurity which is there in us. Then you can also have suffering arising from certain existential or psychological factors. So in a way we see that this suffering is tied down to the nature of existence. And to recognize this, you need introspection, and you also need to understand Buddhist teachings. So in other way, you require a deeper sense of yourself. You also need to learn kind of the teachings like the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, in order to get a better understanding and to address this suffering. Because we see that the Noble Truth deals with this form of suffering. The suffering, origin of suffering, then the cessation of suffering, and the path that is to be taken. So what are the key differences? Now let's just do we have seen these three, we have categorized them. Let's take a look at some of the key differences. First, we see that this, as we said, is direct. Ordinary suffering tends to be direct, whereas dukkha as produced by change is in a way subtle. Dukkha as conditioned states in a way is deeply ingrained or deeply seated within us. So for example, if we are to put this in a chart, we can say that, okay, starting from top to down, we will be able to put dukkha as ordinary suffering over here. Dukkha is produced by change in the second tier, and dukkha as conditioned states lower. So as you go lower and lower, you require a deeper understanding of yourself. You require a deeper level of concentration, a deeper level of focus. Only then, so this is immediately apparent to everybody. This requires a little bit of effort, and conditioned states requires a whole deal of efforts. So most of us could either be in the first two states of knowing it, but this requires a great deal of effort. So we see that another difference is ordinary suffering is easily recognizable. You see somebody in pain, somebody suffering, somebody crying, etc. It is easily recognizable to us. Dukkha as produced by change requires us to understand the impermanence of things. Only when we understand that things are impermanent, then this dukkha as produced by change makes sense to us. We are able to see the subtleness of the things in life. And finally, when we look at conditioned states, this involves an even deeper level. So this would be even deeper level understanding. Okay, so when we speak of the third one, we can say, like, for example, you have, okay, so you are doing something, okay, and suddenly the thought comes to your mind, what will happen if suddenly something happens to me? Okay, so for example, you are doing your work, you are very happy, you are getting this thing, and suddenly you think, suppose if I meet with an accident today, what will happen about my life? What will happen about my goal? What will happen about my mission? Or if you are a family, all these insecurities. If I have not saved enough. Will I have something enough for them? How will they this thing? So basic kind of an insecurity which you have. Okay, but this mainly results from the existential point of view. That means the life point of view. Whereas we see that the earlier ones can be attributed to physical, mental kind of a thing. See, the difference between these, it is like there are many overlapping things which are there. Okay, but only with regards to the level of knowing it, the level of recognizing it, we can make a distinction. Okay, so here between these two, more or less it is a bit closer compared to the first and second. Okay, so first and second you can make a difference. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I was thinking for the third point, for instance, like Mother Teresa, she went through that phase of dryness in a spiritual life. So can that be under the third one?
Yeah, so you are speaking about the dark night of the soul, exact. Yes, we could involve that in this. Okay, that could be put into that. So as we see, we have seen that one is easily recognizable, the other requires us to know the impermanence of things, and when it comes to conditioned states, we have to have an awareness of our existential self.
Like the first stage, the ordinary suffering, something that cannot be avoided, death, old age. Whereas the other two, can it be avoided?
They say it can be avoided by, so for example, if you are able to understand the impermanent nature of things, and if you are not attaching yourself, you can avoid it. For example, given the example of your previous mission, if you are not attached to that place, if you come to your new place with a completely new mindset, you can avoid that kind of feeling. For example, if you have already people have told you certain things about the place where you are going, if you carry that with you, you tend to see whatever happens, you tend to view it in the same box. Whereas if you are open, you may not view it in the same way what the other has told. So again, this requires a bit of detachment. The next state requires an even more deeper level of detachment, which everybody is not able to achieve. For example, you and I may not be able to be liberated from this level of suffering. Why? Because it requires an even more deeper level of things. This we may be able to achieve. Okay? Dukkha as ordinary suffering, yes, we know inevitable, nothing is going to happen. This one, we can deal with it. Okay? Whereas this one requires, it's not impossible, but it requires a great deal of effort.
One of the Dalai Lamas says, it states that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yes. So, in that sense,
We are saying suffering is inevitable.
no, the pain here, it's like the whatever physical and mental pain which is there. See, in the first state, as we said, everything is direct. So something happens, you feel the pain of it. Okay, that pain causes in a way suffering. Whereas here, this would be more something that has to do with your ability of holding on. In that sense. Okay. So now let's go to we'll continue with the teachings. So there is also a concept which is called a no moving mover. So behind every movement, there is no unmoving mover. So it is said that there is only movement in life, and therefore Buddhist philosophy will teach us that it is not right to say that life is moving, but life is movement itself. Yes, sorry. So it's not correct to say. So to say life is moving is wrong. Life itself is movement. So this in a way reflects a fundamental view of the nature of our existence and self. So this in a way will challenge the nature, so it challenges nature of permanent entities like soul, for example, that exist independently. So let's take a look at this no unmoving mover. So what can we understand by this no unmoving mover? In simple words, let's not get philosophical now. First, let's try to have a simple understanding. When you hear no unmoving mover, yes? No God. Any other this thing? Mover should not be affected, you say. Okay?
Mover is a person.
Huh?
It's a person, a mover.
Hmm.
It's a person who is not moving mover.
It can be anybody. So suppose, let's say that there is
Nobody who is unmoving.
okay, so sometimes in the future when you all do philosophy of God, you all will deal with certain proofs for the existence of God. And in one of those proofs, you will have something called as an unmoved mover. Okay? So there is somebody who is sitting right up there and he is having strings to whatever is happening around here. So this is what we call as an, so everything in a way is being dictated, everything in a way is being fixed. This is what we would call as an unmoved mover. Okay, for example, when you are moving or carrying something and going, you are not an unmoved mover. Why? Because you are also moving with it. In this case, when you are in one place, okay, and directing things around, you tend to be, or in this case, we refer this concept to God, that God is an unmoved mover. So when we say here that there is no unmoving mover, so in simple words, I can say that there is no static, or a separate entity that is behind actions and changes. So in a way, there is only movement. So basically everything in life is a series of interconnected events. Let's take for example, there is a person A over here who has a limp. Okay, he is limping. Then when you go a little bit deeper, you realize that the person is limp right from an early age. Then you realize further that he has a kind of a condition which has arisen as a result of an accident during childhood. So rather than saying that this person has been given this deformity by God, we trace this deformity to a kind of a series of events that have taken place. So it is something that is caused by interconnected events, one leading to another, that has put you in that particular situation. Let's take for example, you know you are not supposed to, let's say for example, steal. And one day you find yourself in prison. Okay, so rather than in a way blaming the police, you can trace back your events to that very moment where the thought entered in your mind of you deciding to steal something. Okay, so rather than saying that because of this it happened, you go back and see that there is a series of events which caused it. So next we see that, as I said, there is no permanent force, no permanent entity that drives this event. So there is nothing, there is no puppet master who is directing the events. Everything is happening because of the choices, because of the decisions that we make in life. And therefore it is said, life is not something that moves, but life itself is movement. So when we say life as movement, we say that it is defined by constant change and process. So life is a kind of a flow of experiences. Another way to understand this whole concept is by looking at, there is no thinker behind the thought. Can anyone throw light on this? Attempt. There is no thinker behind the thought. Okay, let's put the answer. You say no soul. Just feel free. Huh. Okay, thought is ultimate. Okay. Just express yourselves. Don't be afraid whether it will be right, whether it will be wrong. We'll have a look at it later. But just allow yourselves, allow your minds to just kind of wander into it. Take some time.
No thinker behind the thought. What I personally think is actually my thought is not my thought. Your thought is my thought. Because everything is determined consciously or unconsciously by our experiences, what we read, what we work. So it goes on and on. So therefore, no thinker behind the thought.
Okay, so in simple words, how would you put it?
It's already there.
Okay.
It's already there. It's already there.
If you say everything is determined, okay, I mean, I understood what your thought about. But when we say everything is determined, once again we are contradicting this statement, right? That there is somebody who is determining, controlling this. So in a way we can say that everything is kind of consequence of decisions, right? So one thing leading to another. Okay. Huh. Yes. Okay. So in just how would you put it in a simple this thing? Okay. Subconscious influence of the subconscious. Any other? Okay, so let's try to make sense of this.
Before that, could you tell us what is that no permanent, static, separate entity behind actions or change?
Yeah, so that means there is nobody who is in a way controlling your actions. So for example, there is no puppet master who is sitting right up there and saying, I will make this fellow do this, I will make Claudius do this, I will make Kajran do this. Okay, everything whatever is happening is because of the choices either made in the past, remote past, or in the immediate past. So let's try to make some sense of this. So in a way, what you all have thought, the brainstorming that we had was somehow close to it. So first and foremost, we say that thoughts do not originate from a permanent thinker. So thoughts arise because of, as we said, consequences of decisions or various conditions or interdependent things. So, in a way, we can say the thinker, the thought itself is the thinker. So the act of thinking in a way doesn't require an additional thinker. So the process of thinking in a way doesn't come from a distinct entity. So the very fact that you have a thought implies that you are thinking. There need not be somebody else who is coming and putting in that thought in your mind. So for example, if we remove this thought, where is the thinker? Okay, let's take an example here. Sam? Yeah.
But isn't the thinking coming from a past experience or something?
Yes, exactly. So now, just keep one thought that comes to your mind. Just name a thought that is there in your mind currently. Okay, playing. If you remove that thought, is the thinker still there? Okay, let's try to still this thing. So, we say that the thought itself is a thinker. The very fact that you have something implies that you are thinking. If you try to, in a way, remove this kind of a thought, you as a person will exist. But the fact that you are thinking no longer exists. Okay? So, for example, when you stop playing, yourself doing the action of the playing stops. You don't cease to exist. Similarly, in that way, when the thought ceases, the thinker itself ceases. Not thinker, don't think of the thinker as in terms of a physical person. Thinker more in terms of the act of thinking.
Father, see, what you are saying here is that we are not thinkers. The thought itself is a thinker. Correct?
No, I did not say. No, I did not say we are not thinkers. I said that if you remove the thought, the thinker, there is no thinker without the thought. There is no player without the playing. Okay, there is no eater without the eating, in that sense. So you are not referring to the physical person. So I am not referring to. So example C. Now Sam is thinking about what he will do in the next class. Now when I make you stop thinking that, Sam will exist as a person. Sam as a thinker will not exist in that sense. Because there is nothing, there is no process going on. Okay? Similarly, playing. When I am playing, myself as a player is playing. Self, after the games get over, we come back, the player ceases. But myself as a person is still remaining. So this is what is meant by this, which says that thoughts, the thinker is just because of the thoughts and is not an independent entity. So the same thing we can also see with Descartes. Have you heard of this? Cogito ergo sum. Okay? So tomorrow when we begin, we will see how this thought contradicts cogito ergo sum. So what is cogito ergo sum? I think, therefore I am. But what we are trying to say now is, I don't need to exist in order to think. Okay, so we'll just have a look at this tomorrow. Okay, so still keep thinking about this. No thinker behind the thought. And try to come with some other reflections. Okay, by yourselves. Just give it a thought. Let it remain in your mind.